Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. What if I told you that the best time to bring in a business turnaround expert is before you ever need one? And what if everything those experts do to rescue a business in crisis is actually just good business sense? It's actually just good business planning that was never done in the first place. Now, I've been sitting with this thought ever since I finished recording, two conversations with two very different guests, two very different careers, and two completely different angles on business turnaround. And when I've gone back and I've listened to both of them, I realized that they were telling me exactly the same thing. And that thing matters enormously for every business owner, for you listening to this right now. Now, those two guests, between them, they've rescued hundreds of businesses from the brink. Now, one of them, he's built his career in the United States, and one has worked across borders and continents. They've never met. Well, as far as I know, they've never met. But here's what's fascinating. They both have arrived at exactly the same conclusion about why businesses fail. And when I've heard this, when I've listened back to it, I thought, we need to talk about this again because it's very relevant right now for you as a business owner with everything that's going on in the world, all the conditions, all the things that are changing, all the crises everywhere. It's relevant to you right now. So here's the question we need to ask. How are we going to cope when we hit a serious crisis tomorrow? Cash flow's dried up, major clients walked, interest rates have gone up again, crushing your margins. Where do we get started? Well, what's the document that tells you exactly where your business is and where it's going and what your strategy actually is? Now, if you're struggling to answer that question, you need to stay with me because this episode is for you. Welcome back to The Business Behind Your Business. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and today I'm doing something a little bit different here. I'm no guest today, just me and this camera and a conversation, and I think this conversation is really overdue because over the last few weeks, the conversations I've been having have come up and recurred around this central theme, around the need for a change to how we do business. Why do we get ourselves in this position where we're so impacted by what's going on around us? So I'm thinking back to two really important conversations we've had previously on The Business Behind Your Business. And the first was with Mike Dunlop, who's an entrepreneur who arrived in America with just $300 and no qualifications. And he went on to help restore, dozens of companies in various stages of financial distress, return them to profitability. Now, he's still running businesses late in his 70s, and he is one of the most energizing guests I've had on this show. And the second conversation that really struck home here was with James Martin, who's the managing partner at ACM Capital Partners. Now, James has more than 2 decades of experience in corporate restructuring and over $800 million of value restored to private companies. And the kind of global cross-industry perspective that very few people have. And we heard some of the conversations about what he was doing, particularly during COVID. Now, when I go back to those both conversations, they were extraordinary conversations in their own right. But something happened when I sat back and really thought about what both of them were saying. And I want to share it with you because this insight, you need to hear it today. Because I think it changes the way you need to think about your business and how you approach planning, business planning particularly, in your business right now. So let me take you through both conversations, and then I want to show you where they connect, because they connect in a place that I think is going to surprise you. So the first thing that Mike said, and I want to be very clear about this come from somebody who's been in the trenches of failing businesses, and that is that a business turnaround is infinitely more psychological than it is mechanical accounting, more psychological than it's a process. And look, as an accountant, I'll be honest, that caught my attention because we tend to go straight to the numbers. We look at the profit and loss, we look at the cash flow, we try to find the problem in the financials. But Mike's point, and this is really important, is that by the time you're staring at bad numbers, the real problem has already existed for a long time. The numbers are just where it shows up. And he said something that has stuck with me. He said, the first stage is always denial. When a business is in distress, the owner is almost always in denial about how bad it is. And they're getting some help staying in denial because, look, in Mike's words, our wonderful friends in the accounting world sometimes feel their job is to take bad numbers and make them look good. And so the owner looks at those good numbers and says, well, they're not really that bad. And look, I know that's a confronting thing to say about my profession, but Mike is 100% right there. I've sat across from clients with a set of financial statements that tell a very comfortable story. But when I've dug deeper, what I've found underneath is a very different picture entirely. Now, Mike described it like playing golf. Now, in golf, you have to play the ball. You have to hit it from where it lies, where it landed, not from where you wish it was, not from where it looked last quarter, but from where it actually is today. And here's the thing that really resonated with me. It really struck home. He said the number one reason businesses get into that situation isn't the market and it isn't the economy. It isn't their competitors. It isn't the crisis happening across the globe. It's actually their leadership. It's the leader who isn't creating a vision, who isn't inspiring their team, who's doing things mechanically rather than having any genuine passion and purpose. And Mike's prescription, his turnaround strategy, it always starts with the leader, the business leader, the owner, you. So before the numbers, before the restructure, before the cash flow plan, it starts with you and who you are leading. Why are they following you and what are you building together? Now, he called culture your insurance program. And if you build the right team, they're the ones who will step up when things get hard. Now, Mike has created a great culture in his business. He's had employees offer to take a pay cut to help the business through a tough period. But he's also had employees that don't want to leave. He's got a really low turnover and he's up the road just close by to some really big companies with some great opportunities. But his employees want to stay with him. Now think about that. Okay, Mike's in his 70s, many younger employees, lots of opportunity, lots of big name companies around very close by, and they want to stay with him. Now, you don't get to a situation of having that kind of culture accidentally. You've got to build it, and you've got to build it long before a crisis hits. You can't try and implement culture when a crisis hits. You've got to have it in place. Now, I want to change the angle slightly here because James Martin comes at possibly a little bit different perspective because he came at this from a completely different direction. And yet, as you're going to hear, he landed in exactly the same place. Now, James doesn't like the word turnaround. And look, I'm against it a little bit as well because it means that you're really, it sort of limits you because you've got to be in a bad position to start with. I think a lot of this strategy, a lot of the ideas that Mike and James have really hit home on, they're valid for every business. You don't need to be in crisis to start implementing these strategies. You don't need to be in crisis before you start to make a plan on changing your business for the better, to make it stronger. James doesn't like the word turnaround, and he prefers to call it a paradigm shift. And basically that just means a change of thinking. Like a change of thinking, because in his experience, the companies that get into serious trouble are the ones that have never shifted. They've kept the same operating model. They've kept doing things the same structure, the same strategy, long after the world, the economy, their environment has changed around them. And he's made that point. James has made the point that I think is really relevant. It's incredibly relevant right now, particularly for businesses facing, tariff changes, rising interest rates, supply chain pressures again. Okay, we're back here again. We thought we'd seen the end of it with COVID, but we're back here again. And all the things that are hitting businesses hard at the moment, I can remember what James said. He said, you've got to be anticipating these changes. You've got to be aware of the marketplace and be in a position to shift pretty quickly. And look, that sounds simple enough, but here's the question James is really asking. What's the mechanism that allows you to do that? How do you spot the change coming? And how do you make a decision quickly? How do you know which way to turn? And his answer was strategy. Specifically, and I'm going to quote him directly here, he said, the most critical part of our strategy is to ensure that your strategy is aligned with all of your constituents, your team, your suppliers, your customers, your lenders, and your regulators. So he said aligned. And that word is crucial here. It is everything. Because if your strategy isn't clear, if it isn't written down, it isn't thought through, it isn't stress tested, how can it possibly be aligned with anyone? How do your suppliers know what you're building? How does your team know where you're heading? And how does your leader have any confidence that you can come out the other side? And James Martin, he had a very direct message about lenders, by the way. He said, please do not isolate your lender. Do not tell them things are good when they're not. And do not hand them financials that don't tell the real story. Because in his experience, the businesses that try to hide the truth from their lenders, they're the ones who end up having management thrown out when the bank finally steps in. But here's the flip side of that. And this is the opportunity angle James always looks for. The businesses that are honest, transparent, and come to their lenders with a clear plan, those businesses, they find partners, not adversaries. And that plan, that clear, honest plan is what makes all the difference. So let me pause here for a second because I want to connect these two conversations and I want to be really honest with you about what I think they're actually pointing to. So Mike Dunlop, multiple business rescues, lots of experience in his 70s, leadership, psychology, culture. James Martin, hundreds of millions in value restored, strategy, alignment, communication. Different industries, different continents, different careers. But here's what I noticed when I put these two conversations side by side. Both of them are describing the same failure, and it's not the failure that happens in crisis. It's the failure that happened years before when the business was running okay, growing steadily, surviving, and nobody stopped to build the foundation properly. So stay with me here because this is where it gets really important for you. Okay? We need to, lock it in, stay with me. So Mike's core message here is about leadership, having a vision, communicating it, and building that culture that can weather any storm. But what is a vision? If it's not written down, what is a clear direction for the business if it only exists in your head, if it only exists in the head of the business owner? James, he had the core message about strategic alignment, making sure everyone who is connected to your business understands the strategy. But how do you align your team, your suppliers, your lenders with a strategy that was never articulated? You never told anybody, you never wrote it down, you never spoke about it. So here's my answer, and it's not a complicated one. Okay, it's very simple. You need a business plan. Not a 40-page document that lives in a drawer and never gets looked at again. Not a plan you wrote to satisfy your bank 5 years ago and haven't touched since. What you need is a living, working, honest plan that tells the truth about where your business actually is. So you're playing the golf ball from where it lies, as Mike would say, and where your business is genuinely headed. So what strikes me about both of these conversations is that so much of what happens in a business turnaround situation, the forensic analysis, the stakeholder alignment, the strategy clarity, leadership accountability, all of that is essentially trying to rebuild in a crisis what a good business plan would have provided from the start. So Mike, he turns up unannounced, spends the first 2 days pulling apart the financials to find out where the business actually is. James, he sits down with the management team, maps out who owns what decision, what the strategy is, and whether everyone is aligned with it. And look, I respect both of these men for the skill it takes to do that work under pressure when a business is on the line. But wouldn't you rather do that work now from a position of clarity and control rather than being under duress with a turnaround specialist standing in your business, sitting in your chair? Because that's the question I want to leave you sitting with now. Because the answer to that question is what I've been building towards on my other channel. in my other activities. And what I want to talk to you about for the rest of this episode, for the rest of this conversation, and it's bringing it all together here. It's bringing those conversations, it's bringing the work of Mike and James together here. So very simply, I've been an accountant and a business advisor for a long time. And one of the most consistent things I see is business owners who are working incredibly hard. Genuinely, they're doing everything they can, but they don't have a clear written plan or a written statement of their strategy, what their business actually does, who their customer is, of where the growth in their business is going to come from, or what the risks are and how they're managing them. And so when something changes, so when interest rates move, when a key employee leaves, when a major client walks out or stops doing business with you, when the tariff environment or overseas conditions shift overnight, they're scrambling. And it's not because they're bad business owners. It's because they didn't have a foundation in place. They didn't have the strong foundation in place. And look, I've talked about business planning before, and I know you've heard me. And I know the moment some of you hear the words business plan, you're already thinking, oh, not again, not that document. That one with the 40 pages. Look, we've been through that exercise. It's full of projections, market analysis, and it took too long to write. We've been seeing it. It's been sitting there untouched. And look, I get that. And I understand why business owners feel that way. But I want to be completely clear with you. I want you to reframe this. We need to think about a business plan not as a large document, but what is it for a business owner like you? Okay? You've heard me say it before. It doesn't need to be 40 pages. It doesn't need to take 3 months. In fact, the most powerful business planning tool I've seen, and this works consistently for small business owners, it fits on a single page. Okay? It's a one-page plan, a one-page business plan, one page. It captures your vision, where you're heading, your goals, your key strategies, the key financials at a glance, and your priorities for the next 90 days. One page that your whole team can read and understand. One page that a lender can look at and he can immediately grasp what you're trying to build. It's one page that you can put on your wall and actually use, not something that you file and forget. And that's what Mike Dunlop is building in a turnaround. He's reconstructing, but under enormous pressure. He's reconstructing the clarity that a good one-page plan drives and provides from day one. That's what James Martin is doing when he aligns strategy across all the business's constituents, all the stakeholders. He's creating the shared understanding that a solid plan makes possible before any crisis anywhere arrives. So the plan, it's not just a document. I keep saying this, it's not a document. It's a discipline. It's the habit of knowing where your business is, where it's going, and what everyone around it needs to know about that direction. So look, if what I've been talking about here has made a mark with you, it's resonated with you, and look, I think it will. Because if you're a regular listener of this podcast, you're the kind of business owner who takes this seriously. And I want to point you to something that I've been building under my brand of Paul Sweeney Accountant, because in that role, in that guise, I've been specifically focusing on business planning for small business owners. And I've wanted to create a practical, no jargon, actually get it done version of what we're talking about today. Now, I've put out resources specifically around that one-page business plan, how to build one, what it needs to include, how to use it as a working tool rather than a filing cabinet document. And look, I want to be upfront with you. I've launched it. I've taken the process, the method that I've used for over 30 years with my clients, and I've created and produced this method, this tool into what I call the business planning operating system. It's a structured course. Yep, it's a course. Takes you through, though, building not just a one-page plan, but the complete system for using that plan to run your business day to day. And it's the framework I've been using with my own clients. It's been built for business owners who want clarity, control, and a plan that actually gets used. Because here's what both Mike and James were really telling us in these conversations. businesses that survive, the businesses that survive, and more than just that, the businesses that thrive, they absolutely thrive when everyone else around them is struggling. They are the ones that have a clear strategy. They have the right people aligned with it. They have honest numbers to work from and a leader with a genuine vision for where it's all going. Now, that's not magic. It's not luck. That's what good business planning looks like. And that's exactly what I've tried to capture in the business planning operating system that I've designed to help you build your business plan, build your great business. So we're going to put links to that in the show notes. But if you can't remember that, just search for Paul Sweeney Accountant. You'll go to the website and you'll see the course information there, and you'll get a better picture of what's included and what it will do for you, how it would help you create that clarity and structure for your business. You'll also be able to download the free one-page business plan, which will help you get started if nothing else. And look, if you're watching this or listening to me today, you're probably thinking, well, hang on, it's a cost. I don't need another cost in my business. Instead, I wanted you to view it as an asset. I want you to view it as an investment in your business, an investment in your future. Because what I can tell you from over 30 years of working with business owners, the ones who invest in their planning before they need a turnaround specialist, they never need the turnaround specialist. But more importantly, they're the ones that are growing and thriving when everybody else is treading water and standing still or going backwards. So I just want to wrap it up, bring this episode to a close today, because I want to leave you with something very clear and practical. Mike Dunlop, he's told us that a business turnaround is more psychological than accounting, and that businesses which weather every storm are the ones with strong leadership, clear vision, and a culture that functions as an insurance policy. And James Martin, he told us that business turnaround is about a paradigm shift, a change in the way you think. And that the businesses that survive and thrive are the ones where strategy is aligned with every key stakeholder, built on honest numbers with the right people in the right roles. And what I'm telling you today is that you don't have to wait for a crisis to build these things. You can build them now. With a clear business plan, one that fits on one page, one your team can actually use, one that lives and gives you the foundation that every great business needs. So start there. Everything else will follow. And as always, look, if today's episode has given you something to think about, please share it with another business owner who needs to hear it. We're all in this together, and the more we can help each other build stronger businesses, the better it is for all of us. Look, you'll find links to both the Mike Dunlop and James Martin episodes in the show notes, along with a link to the Paul Sweeney Accountant website and the Business Planning Operating course. So until next time, look, I want you to stay inspired, but keep building the business of your dreams, okay? Build the business behind your business. That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favourite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes, along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.